If you have anything toxic or potentially canceling you want to say right now, go ahead and do that. No? Okay. France. I mean, honestly, fucking hell.
France is the reason we have Theodism.
Obviously. Fuck you, Charlemagne. Fuck you, fucking Clovis. Fuck all of you.
Charlemagne can suck my nards. Does anyone want an intro? Should we intro?
Should probably think of an intro. You want me to do the intro this time?
Yeah, you're more than welcome to.
Alright. Hello and welcome everybody to the second episode of The Heathen Bitches. I am one of your hosts, Sigrun. You can find me and my socials at capital E, Empress _ capital T, Trixana on the Hellbird site Twitter, or with my blog, Bad Sigrun, all one word, all lowercase, .wordpress.com.
Yeah. Yeah, it's me, Glade again. She, her. Find me on YouTube, Everglades Ergi. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Fishy. I have an Instagram. It's at Fishy _ Bishy.
Was that Vishy or Bishy?
No, it's Bishy.
Bishy with a B. Okay.
Yeah, definitely not Vici. Do not look up Fishy the Vici. That would be weird. I'm sure there's an account like that somewhere, and I'm sure it's cursed.
We suddenly get Roman Fishy.
I was more worried about Vichy France Fishy.
Oh. I mean, we should all be worried about France.
God damn it.
True.
That joke doesn't make any sense in this context.
It doesn't have to.
Who cares about context?
Look, if you're watching this, you should know by now that France is your enemy. And that's really the goal of this podcast today, to teach you about France.
Francia delenda est.
This has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
So you probably looked at the title of the thing. Who could have guessed that putting the title there makes people read it? Wow. So the biggest thing we're tackling today is Theodism and some other forms of like heathenry that aren't great, but primarily Theodism. And this is going to go in a couple of parts. So I'm going to hand this off to the two Anglo-Saxon heathens because I'm sure they have much more they want to say about Theodism.
What is Theodism?
Something incredibly cursed that someone fucking made up for no fucking reason.
Heathen Mormonism.
Yeah, Heathen Mormonism, kinda, sorta. Yeah, you could probably...
I think you could make the argument. I mean, there's some dude who on the 4th of July was revealed to him by Woden the secret to being a proper heathen, and to restoring the power to the gods.
Okay, so anyway, we should probably give some context to what we're going to go into, because we are discussing heathenry, we're going to discuss the full topic of stuff like Reconstruction later on down the road in a future episode dedicated just to Reconstruction and Reconstructionists as a whole, but we're going to focus just as a general overview for the purposes of this episode. What heathenry is, or what it strives to be, is a Reconstructionist religion, meaning that we look back to the historical past via research, like we're researching the society, the practices of historical peoples, in this case Germanic peoples, ranging from Proto-Germanic peoples during the time of Tacitus to the Anglo-Saxon migrators like Fishy and I look at, to a bunch of silly little Vikings running around sacking monasteries. So we look at their practices, at their cultures, and we sort of pick them apart to an extent and find what practices can be adapted into the modern day to make a functioning, thriving, modern religion. That is pretty much the basic brass tacks of Reconstruction. What is not necessarily part of the methodology of Reconstruction is wholesale replicating the whole, pretty much huge elements of the past society, their structures, because we're talking about Iron Age peoples for heathenry specifically, like Germanic Iron Age peoples with kinship structures that were kind of violent, kind of shit, to be very blunt. They were basically like very honor-bound societies, very stratified, hierarchical. You know, you had kings and earls and shit. You had like not feudal, not it's still like pre-feudal, but it's the seeds of feudalism, basically. The seeds that would blossom into the absolute mess that was feudalism in the high medieval period. Like pretty much all those structures were there, and it was not a great time necessarily. It was a different mode of society than what anyone in the present day is used to.
Yeah.
As Reconstructionists, we don't need to reconstruct the society that worshipped the gods at the time. Like, we can just reconstruct the worship without reconstructing the society. I mean, we're not walking around in Anglo-Saxon dress every day.
Right. Our goal is to reconstruct the religion and make it work within our own time period and our own culture. Like, we're not attempting to bring back the good old days, right? And so part of that is recognizing what parts were like, because religion and culture and like society are so inherently intertwined. A big portion of Reconstruction is looking at, hey, what do we keep? What do we maybe give away? What is it here that is the core of why this happened? Was this rooted in a social idea, or was it rooted in a theological kind of sense?
Of course, as we have mentioned all of that, there are groups which have taken the ideas of Reconstruction and gone to that extent in which they are attempting to replicate the old societies in kind of a very misguided thinking process where they have come to believe that you have to in order to have a functioning religion. And that is what brings us to the topic of this episode's title today, Theodism.
Now, is it theodism or theodism or?
So in Old English, like theod means
Yeah.
people.
Okay.
It's just another word for people, like how folk is for people. And these people call themselves, like, basically they're theodish. They're trying to replicate the practices of the people as they see them. And they've been termed Theodism because of their obsessive use of theod.
Oh, so it's not pronounced theodism.
No, theod.
I just want to mock them. I'm sorry. This isn't going to go anywhere. Yeah. We should probably give some sort of idea about the basics of what it is. I should stop stopping you, actually, is what should happen. Continue.
No. That's the charm of the podcast. We just kind of go off and say whatever we feel like. That is the point of a podcast. But anyway, so like the basic tax of a theod is that, well, theods, we'll get into like their bit of their like how they came to be later, but the general overview is that theods are groups of normally Anglo-Saxon, but you do see some attempts to do a theodish kind of structure with like Norse or any other group. It's the basic structure kind of is the same. They center themselves around a figure that they call, a king, earl, jarl, whatever, and they ritualistically oath themselves to him, and then into a descending sort of order of attempted aristocracy, all the way down to, well, a literal thrall position, as in they literally have like the initiates be called slaves because they're they do this because of some certain beliefs and stuff like sacral kingship and whatnot that, again, we'll get into later. But basically, they think that the people need to be led by a king or any sort of aristocrat. Basically, they need a chief central leader who is the focal point between them, the people, the theod, and the gods.
And in that sort of intercessionary, that's the word. In that sort of intercessionary role for the beginning of Theodism, you have this figure, a man by the name of Garmin Lord, who strikes fear into all who hear his name, and none who see his face. That didn't work.
Perfect.
Yeah, so there's this dude who he has a video on YouTube describing the story of when he was revealed to him by Woden what he needed to do to save the faith. This is why I liken it to Mormonism, in that there was a revelation that happened in the United States, and now there is a separate branch of a faith based around that leader and their secret knowledge that cannot be gained outside of it.
And it's very often culty.
Yeah, like one of the tenets that you can find on the original, I can't remember the name of their group, but to be honest, I don't want to say it so we don't promote it. Not that we have much of an impact anyway. But this group, the original theodist group, one of the rules that you can find on their website is if someone is given outlawry, which is an equivalent to an excommunication, that you're not even supposed to mention their names because their actions are so heinous that their names are better left forgotten. So if someone you loved is deemed, unable to be a part of this theodist society, well then, sorry. Can't even say their name. They're donezo.
It very much tends to fit the bite model.
Cult to the extreme. Because, what's a good religion without bullshit like that?
A good religion. That's what it is.
Fuck you. We definitely need to abuse our practitioners like this. It's obvious.
And you could have seen this coming when you realize they're trying to reconstruct what is a feudalist society. Was it even feudalism? Was that the
pre-feudal?
Right term?
It's like very
pre-feudalist.
It's very
But it's coming up to feudalism.
Yeah.
It's butt and butts. Their butts are touching. You think about some of the worst ways that people have lived. And then you think, one of the first things that comes to mind is feudalism, a system where people can have no social mobility, and they can't even make profit off of the work that they're doing because it all goes to the Lord. It is mind-boggling that given all the pangs I have with capitalism, I hate capitalism. I hate it with every fiber of my being. Wanting to go back to feudalism or pre-feudalism that's brain rot right there.
And especially on a micro scale with a tiny group of people where the quote-unquote lord can't even do any of the good things for people that a lord had the power to do back in the day, like grant land or titles that actually meant anything.
Right, because you're living within a country, presumably. You're
in
not
a society.
even if it's private land. There is laws above the Lord that would not have existed back then. And so if you're like, yeah, I want to reconstruct this, and I think that the sacred kingship is necessary, too late. Too bad.
Yeah, you are literally all, even your blessed little kings are all subjects to modern nation states. They live inside, most likely, a liberal capitalist society, with either in a republic like the United States, or maybe a constitutional monarchy like Britain or Canada or whatever. They do not live in times where you would have either lands or titles or even any sort of reason to be a lord. You're just a dude. You're just a dude who works a job. You work under capitalists and under the capitalist system. You're nobody. You're a cog in the machine, and you're certainly not a conduit to Woden or whatever.
It's like them basic bitches that are like, yeah, I was born in the wrong generation. I would have killed it in the 50s or the 20s. Or, really, I'm a hippie. I should have been a 70s girl. Yeah, you should have got polio. I agree.
I should have been born in the year 600.
You should have been, all of these times, you're looking at them aesthetically and oh, that's so wonderful. Oh, civil rights didn't exist. These are arguably horrible. Looking back in time and idealizing the past is not great. Someone the other day accused Reconstructionists of exoticizing the history of the past, and I don't want to get into that because but like the past is shitty, the future's shitty, the real world right now is shitty, but arguably we're in a pretty not that shitty time, like governmentally.
Like at least as incredibly flawed and not really existent as it is, we do have some ability to dictate unto ourselves what to do as a broader societal whole.
A lot of the times what theods will do, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about like my personal experience with theodism, because that's like kind of my first exposure to heathenry was through a Norse group that was emulating theodism. In place of like offering titles and land and shit, they try to gatekeep knowledge. So they'll be like, we have like secret sources that we've unearthed, but only full members who are oathed can access it, and it's like the fucking Gesta Norum or something.
So they're not going out and doing archaeological digs and actually finding secret knowledge, are they?
Yeah, not in suburban America.
Wow.
What a shock. Wow. I can't believe that they do such a thing. What?
But the Vikings got
in case
here
it needs
first.
to be said, in case it needs to be said, there are no secret sources. Especially on Anglo-Saxon heathenry. You can research all of our primary sources in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, you could. If you've read Beowulf, you've pretty much read a huge majority of what we actually have.
I'm an Anglo-Saxon expert then. Oh my gosh, what do I need YouTube for? I'm kidding.
Here's the thing about this. Like, we're sitting here calling these people silly and weird and just anachronistic as all fuck, because there's no real fucking way that this could work. The next part of this is the sad kind of truth that they were probably among the earliest heathen groups to have been somewhat more strict with terms of Reconstruction. They were certainly the first for Anglo-Saxon heathenry. That kind of goes into like a broader topic of like early heathenry kind of sucked major ass.
At least nowadays, like a lot of them, I don't think even do that much Reconstruction. How Reconstructionism has evolved since then, it's more
they
about
reconstruct from Garmin Lord.
Oh yeah. Garmin Lord is the new primary source.
Yeah, pretty much. They pretty much stopped after a while and just started like reading amongst themselves. You know, Garmin Lord, Swain Wodening, the other Wodening, fucking Wodening, so many fucking Wodenings.
And this is somewhat indicative of the majority of heathen organizations. They're registered with the government. Many theod groups are registered 501c3 religious organizations. They have horrible rules. They're bigoted as fuck, but they've got their shit together, which should be scary.
Yeah, though at the same time, it just imagine like the funniness of like having your official title on like a fucking organizational document lodged with the government as Earl.
Someone's got it framed on their wall.
It's gotta be. It's probably as funny as I can imagine it. Just like, you are officially, by order of the United States government, Earl of Woden's Balls Theodrice. I don't know.
And your uniform is a Smurf hat and a low-cut V.
Hell yeah.
You making fun of my ritual attire?
No, your ritual attire is great. It is not Smurf hatty.
I know I was making a joke.
No, your ritual attire is more akin to a skull cap.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you ever want to spot Fishy in the wild, look for the lanky man in a skull cap carrying 3 hookah on each arm. It's quite impressive, to be honest.
Through the forest.
Through the forest, yes. Of course. I mean, where are you going to be? The beach? There's no beaches in X place.
In England? Yeah. There's
no beaches in England. Fishy is actually from Luxembourg. I think that's in England. It's probably not.
Luxembourg is now English confirmed. I am sorry, Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. You are now owned by... Wait, is it Grand Duchy? No, is it Principality? I am sorry, weird tiny statelet of Luxembourg. You are now a subject of the British Empire.
And with that we
They
can
did it again.
move on.
We did
wait,
it again.
Wait, Fishy, you did it again. What did you do? I don't even know.
The British did it again.
Here's the thing, y'all. As you may have gathered, I have literally no knowledge about the history of the British Empire or the people who lived in that tiny little island fuck beforehand.
Well, it doesn't matter because most Theods are American.
That's true. That's fact. It's
really
almost
amazing
like...
that Americans in a country that literally started off because someone really got mad that some faraway king was ordering them to pay a tax or two, turn around and reinvent shittier monarchies.
It's almost like, saying most Theods as Americans is like saying most Mormons are Americans.
It's almost redundant.
Yeah. But yeah, Theods. It's if you're considering joining a Theodist group, I have something to tell you. Don't do it. Whatever you do, please don't do it. For the love of your soul, if you believe in a soul, for the love of your legs, your thighs, your ability to breathe air without thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in a cult. Don't join it. Just don't.
A lot of them, the vetting process begins with you as a thrall, which is basically you work for them and you get nothing in return. You aren't allowed to have a say in meetings. You aren't allowed to know any of their quote-unquote secret knowledge. You literally just, clean the leader's house, and that's about it.
Thrall is literally an old term for a slave. You're signing up to be a modern-day slave.
And after you've completed your year or however long of that, you get to be a full member. But to do that, you have to oath to the leader, which is basically signing away your freedom.
And if you understand anything at all about heathenry, oaths are very important. And while I would argue that oaths made under duress, you're free to break them, it's still not good.
There's not a single situation in which you should be oathing yourself to obey someone else's orders for the rest of your life.
No, that wasn't even the historical use of oaths.
Oh, no.
No. You see it occasionally in literature, but it wasn't ever, that extreme of a thing. There'd be some long-term oaths, but for the most part, they're not used like that.
They're just like, hey, I'm gonna go do this thing.
Yeah. I think we've sufficiently touched on why Theods are bad.
Yeah, a little bit. I think we have sufficiently nailed how horrible those little gremlins are.
Yeah.
It's also worth pointing out that the Venn diagram of, Theods who are focused is, almost a circle. Focusism
is
is really big.
It is a circle. I mean, that's pretty much...
I don't think you can be a Theod without being a focused.
Oh, really? Is that a tenet?
It would be kind of difficult, considering, again, the focus on Theod, folk, same,
Yeah,
the words are pretty much synonymous, and the whole focus is pretty much establishing your own little shitty little kingdom. At some level, you're probably a racist.
It's even if we're just looking at the one that Thomas Germain, Mr. Garmin Lord set up. It is a rule. They very explicitly say that this is a membership for the folk of Anglo-Saxon ancestry, or even just broader Western European ancestry, which defeats the purpose. But it's not open. It's very much a focused thing.
I wonder how many Theods
Who would have
know that
guessed?
Urkel is a thing.
Urkel?
Yeah.
Do you mean... Okay, I'm going to assume you don't mean from Family Matters.
Yeah, no, he's a god.
Did I do that?
You didn't know that? Steve Urkel's a god.
do that?
Did I do that? Okay, in all seriousness, what Fishy is describing is that if you dig into old English literature, you can find glosses, and there is a gloss for the Helleno-Roman Hercules. It's literally just Urkel. At some point, the Anglo-Saxon peoples brought Hercules into their language, and it evolved enough in their language to become Urkel. And while that's not necessarily conclusive evidence on its own, you have evidence from the continent, from peoples who might have included some of the ancestral peoples who crossed the sea and became the Anglo-Saxons, of worshipping a deity whose name was Hercules Magusanus. Whatever the hell the second part meant is like some sort of like Celtic thing the Germanic peoples borrowed. And it was worshipped by like Germano-Roman soldiers on the limes on the Germanic frontier, and they syncretized him with Hercules, and that possibly spread. A Roman god just kind of
Hercules.
Yeah, a Rome.
Get fucked, idiot.
And we got a get fucked idiot of the episode.
Hey, there we go.
But yeah, anyway, so like, you cannot escape mixing, be it either of your religion or of just your own people. That's impossible. If you try to stop it, you're probably just going to bring it on even harder later down the road.
And one of the main arguments that like Theods and Focus tend to make is like ancestor worship means we're only worshipping the gods that your ancestors worshipped, but their own fucking ancestors didn't even follow that rule. Like Hercules is not a Germanic god.
If you look at religion across history, syncretism is a big thing. Like, really big. Until you get to, say it with me now. Someone say it with me.
Mormonism.
Christianity. Oh, fuck. But even then, there's, like, Christian syncretism. When you look at, like, folk practices, it's a thing. You can't stop syncretism. Impossible.
Stop syncretism. You cannot stop cultural mixing. You cannot stop any of that.
But you can stop the syncretics. I don't know where I'm going with that. I know where I'm going with that. This is a really good segue to talk about other, like we've used Theodism, Theodism as like this like hyperbolic kind of example for like people doing Reconstruction wrong. There's other people who do it in ways that are a little less shitty, but still shitty. Not syncretics. No, wait, this is not working. That is not what I meant.
Glade has officially denounced syncretism. That is our cancellation.
Syncretism is bad Reconstruction.
No.
Yep, see, I, the syncretic, have to cancel myself. Sorry.
Yeah, but you're like Roman syncretic, so that doesn't count.
Roman syncretized everything. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You know what?
That's all Pax Romana.
Yeah, Sawe Amiki.
I don't know what you're saying. Okay. Let's go down the list. Fuck. Things that are slightly less shitty than Theodism, but are still shitty ways to reconstruct things. Focusism, number one.
That focusism, as we've already brought up, of course we kind of brought it up with how Theods are often pretty focused. Just focusism in general, as we have explained, is a really, really dumb way to quote-unquote reconstruct anything. You cannot, like we said, you cannot avoid your impurities or whatever the fuck. You cannot avoid that. That's just a natural way of existence. And nor can you bar people from your religions, your societies, or anything on the basis of their biological ancestry. For one thing, that never fucking mattered. You really think that they're out here testing your goddamn DNA in fucking 623?
Biological ancestry wasn't a concept until we got to, like, DNA.
It's not even Reconstruction. Like, it's not a thing that was done historically.
No, I mean, historically, you look at it and it's like, if we're talking Norse, adoption was a thing. When you adopted someone, they were part of your family. They were your blood. Like, it was 100%. And even outside of adoption, like, it wasn't... There's a lot of things that Norse peoples did wrong. They didn't really have a concept of race, mostly because they almost never saw people who weren't Scandinavian or vaguely Germanic.
And when they did, and this goes for a lot of all the other peoples, like the Anglo-Saxons as well, if they did see someone who was not quote unquote typical. They were like, "Oh, okay, hello, are you a dipshit? No, okay, whatever. I don't give a shit."
Yeah, there's a reason that some of the best accounts that we have of these societies come from. Oh shoot, what's the name?
From Muslim scholars who just sort of started wandering all over the place, like Ibn Fadlan or
that's the one.
Others. I can't remember their names. There's a whole bunch of them. Then you have a couple Jews who did it as well because they're also wandering all over the place. You just had a lot of people wandering, ending up in these areas, and they're like, "Oh, well, a bit weird, isn't it? Okay."
It was a wandering time.
I'm a wanderer. We are gonna get fucking demonetized. Not like it matters.
I don't.
We weren't monetized to begin with. It's fine.
Yeah, we're not monetized. You're watching this for free without ads. Consider sending us money. We don't have a way for you to send us money.
Don't consider that.
Reach out to us and send us your money of your own free will.
Please do not do this.
We can cut
Garmin
this.
Lord.
We can. Oh.
We are not cutting it now.
Focusism bad. Focusism bad. Not even Reconstruction. Other thing bad. Primitivism. What is primitivism, you may be asking? Well, for that,
look up
I'm going to turn to
heathenry
Fishy.
on Instagram.
Look up hashtag heathenry, or just watch a Highland concert.
Look up Ward Runa. Or
any Nordic musical artist.
Yeah, it's just any of them. They all do it. And if you ever see, like, someone in, like, fur skin doing, like, fire king, or whatever the fuck, they're doing that too.
It's not Reconstruction.
Primitivism is this viewpoint where we look at things from the past and we tend to extremicize them. What's the way to say this? Like, it plays a lot. Not even romanticize. Because sometimes it's a romanticization. Sometimes it's like, oh, look how primitive these peoples were. Look at the way that they must have not had drums or any instrument other than drums because they were such simple peoples. Like that kind of thing. You know, it plays around a lot with the concept of, like, the noble savage. It's bad.
It falls in really easily with just about any brand of paganism's, like, back to nature kind of philosophy.
Yeah, and oftentimes
a short step.
It takes practices from indigenous cultures and then places them on other cultures for the reason that they're like, oh, this is primitive, so it's definitely the same as this. Or then accentuating and calling the practices of indigenous peoples as primitive, which is not. Ugh. Let me give you one more. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and as you can probably tell, these groups, like, either primitivists or folkists or whatever, well, not necessarily super reconstructive. You can see occasionally a good number of recons who do fall into these traps.
Because it's everywhere.
It's just everywhere. It's kind of just issues in broader pagan everything, and it's pain.
If you like the aesthetic, you're much more likely to not want to drop it because you've probably invested a lot of money in it.
Just a bit.
And you can like the aesthetic, but there's a line, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to stop listening to Heilung.
No.
Just stop saying that it's, like, inspired
authentic,
by the Indo-European spirit or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, they're just
because it's not even heathen.
Yeah, they're just a band that kind of slaps sometimes. It's fine. You can like them.
You can wear fur for a ritual. The second you start saying that I'm wearing fur for a ritual because it's what my ancestors would have done, or that this is this is the correct reconstruction of things, like, that's an issue.
Or you're saying, like, this is what true religion is.
Right. Or even just claiming that that even if you're not saying this is the only way to do something, that this was the way that it was done. No, it wasn't. You're wearing it because you like the look. You like the look of the, like, fucking Viking coated in furs with a round shield and a sword preparing a fucking ritual before he goes off to his ship to raid and pillage. That's what you're doing.
Covered in body paint and face paint of, like, runes and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
you basically just want to look like a fucking character from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which, you know, that's fine. That's fine, I guess, but it's not real.
Is your religion a video game? Mine is.
Sometimes.
Hell yeah.
Fucking, nothing makes me more, like, viscerally shaking in my boots angry than painted on runes. It makes no sense. It makes no goddamn sense.
I saw a video on the Clock app the other day that was talking about how Christian practices were stolen from paganism. And one of the slides was like the Ash Wednesday, you know, making the cross on your forehead with ashes, followed by quote-unquote Norse cosplay with runes painted on the face. And they're like, that's where they stole it from.
You can't claim burning things as being tied to any culture. I'm gonna put that out there.
You can't claim
Everyone
that there's
burns
anything
things.
special about painting yourself with letters.
And there's also no, like, substantial evidence that heathens painted runes on their faces.
Definitely not.
There's
no.
none.
So, like, again, the previous stuff mentioned, not super recon. Though some reconstructionists do fall into these traps. There is one thing that can be associated with the recon label that can be, it's not necessarily as harmful as being an annoying little twat rebuilding Iron Age society, but we're not going to go over it too much because we do have a later episode on Reconstruction. But the thing, it would be just being like such an annoying stickler towards what was done in the past ritually that you just stop liking any sort of modern innovation. You just kind of lose yourself in the sauce of the past to look at what can be done presently to continue the evolution of the religious practice.
The TLDR of that is there are people out there who think that Reconstruction is the only way to be heathen, and that your reconstructed practices, like, you cannot innovate on them, and that's, like, so dumb.
It ties back into Theodism in that some quote-unquote recons tend to think that you basically have to LARP that you're in, like, pre-Christian Germanic society, to the point where I've seen people get mad that a ritual leader is reading text from a phone for a ritual.
Or using LED
as opposed to
candles.
Paper. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which is like, okay, I get it. Fire has some, like, symbolic significance, but the candles are just light.
Like, you're gonna make the claims that the gods are gonna be mad about that?
Really? Really? Are you really?
The gods famously do not like any sort of technology. If you're doing technology, you should...
No.
This has been censored by the temple.
This is why Thor doesn't have a chariot pulled by goats. It's actually just a slab of wood. With the goats, they aren't tied to it, because rope is technology. The goats have been mounted to the slab of wood.
There's no wheels, because wheels are modernity.
Wheels are an innovation. It's just straight ramp all the way. I'm a ramp girl.
It's a piece of plywood.
Fuck, I'm a ramp girl. Why did I say
ramp
that?
Girl in a ramp world. We are ramp people who ramp all the time.
I don't need no wheels. Ramps get me where I'm going. I'm a ski bitch. I like them skis. Gosh. Also, here's the other thing. Let's say that you are this super hardcore Reconstructionist. You better be living in fucking Scandinavia, because if you're like a Norse hardline recon, because like half this shit does not apply anywhere else in the world. Like if you're looking at like hardline recon practices, your holidays, if you live where I live, something like winter's night and shit doesn't mean anything. Because, it's never cold.
Yeah, like if you're living in more subtropical or just outright tropical areas, you are pretty much stuck from like an entire cycle of rituals from historical times. Like you're not going to get the awakening of spring.
Spring never went away.
Yeah, you're not getting an Aostrafest where she's coming back from fucking winter's rest because she never had to rest. There was no winter.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's winter, it's rain. Just more rain.
If you want to get really nitpicky about it, you could say that even if you lived in Scandinavia, you can't do that because a lot of the Viking Age was during the medieval warm period. So, like, not even the climate there is the same as it was.
True. Those times were actually kind of decent. Like, from like about, let's say like 900, 950 onward, a lot of Northern Europe, like you could grow grapes in England. It was that warm.
No fucking way.
Yes, you could grow grapes in England.
They were growing wheat and shit in Scandinavia, yeah.
Yeah, it was that warm in Northern Europe.
Yeah, this is another misconception is that the Vikings went raiding because it was too fucking cold in Scandinavia and they were looking for greener pastures, which is, no, they just wanted to raid.
I knew they could farm. I didn't realize that they could farm grapes.
Well, if they were England, they could.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, it was basically, like for a good chunk of time, you could do that. Like from again 900, 950 to 1200, it was kind of pretty fucking bitchin' in Northern Europe.
Pretty fucking bitchin'. So yeah, also there is just not enough sources. There's not enough info in the few sources that we do have for anyone to have a real practice that is completely Reconstruction. Because, let's be real, we're going off of Christianized sources that, at least in my domain, are hundreds of years after the religious significance of the stories themselves. And then if you're looking at other accounts, like secondary accounts, how much can you trust that as a recon? You have to, right? That's a burden of faith. In the same way that it's like, there's not enough recorded for us to actually practice with certainty that what we're doing is what was done. It's almost certainly not what was done.
Yeah, in many cases, what we're doing is just kind of literally taking what we can from what existed and then supplementing that. Like, if you're a recon, you are supplementing that with stuff from, the Romans, who wrote a bunch of shit. You're supplementing from, the Greeks, who also wrote a bunch of shit. You're supplementing it from archaeological finds all across Europe, and you're looking at broader Indo-European stuff. Like you want to get into a real rabbit hole, children. Get into Proto-Indo-European shit. You will never leave.
Don't get into it.
Spoiler for next week.
That's not what we're... Oh, shit.
It kind of is.
Yeah,
a little bit.
So, with that, we're going to say good night and farewell to you all, or I guess good day. It doesn't really fucking matter. This has been lovely. The TLDR is, don't be a cunt. Don't be a theod. And if you can, try and do Reconstruction, good? Is that a thing? Wow.
There's no good Reconstruction.
We will get into that, like I have been saying the entire time, later down the road when it comes to Reconstruction. But yeah, that's going to be it for today, tonight, whatever the fuck. Yeah.
Oh no, we have 2 outros now.
Look, that's fine. That's fine. It's fine. We're just going to be we're just going to be like Return of the King. We're going to have multiple endings.
So this is the end of the trial period of Heathens. I know I'm saying it wrong. I'll say it right eventually. The Heathen bitches. This is the end of the trial period. we're going to put this out and the last one out. And depending on how this goes, we'll keep making more. Here's the thing. You should really like this, because next week we're talking about Eds and Jotun and all of them wibbly-wobbly, wildy, wiggly, diggly, dark spirits that are a bit controversial, and that maybe we don't have a very solid opinion as a religious community on them.
Yeah.
None of us have any takes.
There's going to be 0 takes, and there'll definitely not be any cancellations on the matter. So
it's a take.
At least one?
There's one take. I know I have one take. That's the only thing you're going to hear from me next week. If there is a next week, that's up to you, viewer. You decide. Next time on Yathnu Bikisi.
my God.
And that's where we cut it.
Anyway,
That's
bail
where we
you
cut
soon,
it.
and
That's
have
where
a good
we
night.
cut it. That's where we cut it.
Have we cut it yet?